And as we have already established, NMIXX's management is quick to please the fans and is unable to stick to one thing for more than one comeback, and I'm being generous with this. So, Rollercoaster by NMIXX just dropped, and I was disappointed in a sense. And then I had a thought. It's been literally a bit more than a year since OO dropped, and less than a year since Dice dropped. How did we get from that point to now? Because OO and Dice, sonically and conceptually, are miles away from Rollercoaster. It's true that 1 year by K-pop standards is quite a long period, but I think there's more to it, and I wanted to explore that. So if you're up for that, this video is for you. But firstly, a disclaimer. What is stated here is based on my own insights, and in no way am I claiming that this is the only interpretation of the situation. You are very much free to disagree. Also, NMIXX is literally my second favorite group after Twice, so don't even think about calling me a hater. Additionally, when I refer to NMIXX in this video, I refer to them as an entity, meaning everyone behind the group, not just the members, unless otherwise specified, of course. So, most people know of the mess that was NMIXX's debut. The title track, OO, came on with a splash, with the group's main concept being mixed pop, which put plainly is essentially having their songs being mashups of two or more different songs instead of one singular consistent song. Most people hated the song and the concept behind it. NMIXX were called despa copycats and sponsorship chasers. People said that their music was trash, and everyone was pitying them because supposedly their talents were being quote-unquote wasted, and so on and so forth. Truth be told, OO was not that bad. The only jarring part was the transition between the first segment and the second segment of the song, where Jinny goes like, "Enemy!" which was partly made worse by the silence in the MV in that part. What's more, the song wouldn't have received nearly as much backlash if it were released by an already famous group. Literally, New Jeans got away with making a whole song about Coca-Cola instead of just one verse that actually fits lyrically and isn't nearly as out of place as Coca-Cola Masita, as was the case with OO. And similarly, S-Class by Stray Kids carries a lot of similarities with OO, but stays are loving it. And it is undeniable that OO has catchy parts. Still, through all this madness, some people came to like OO. Some, even after just 2 to 3 times listening to it. Yeah, those people exist, I'm telling you. They're not some sort of mythical being or werewolves. Like, I'm literally living proof of that. Furthermore, the B-side, Tank, was liked by a lot more people, though it still maintained a lot of elements of the first girl crushy, if that's a word, I just made it up, part of OO, both sonically and lyrically. And for some, it was enough for them to start following NMIXX on their artistic journey.
MIXX, change up, let's go!
Jumping forward to some months later, NMIXX come back with Dice. Well, the title of the single album containing Dice is Antwerp, but like, who cares? No one remembers that. So yeah, the song receives a lot more positive attention because it was much tamer in the nature of its switch up. Its second verse, the N Mix, change, up, let's go. Big wave, big wave. I know it was cringe, but like, I had to show people what part I was talking about. It goes kind of viral on TikTok, and a lot more people are paying attention to NMIXX and their mix pop. However, this is where the cracks start to form, because along with dice, we get cool Your Rainbow, within parentheses. It is a nice song, good lyrical message, and is brought to life by an emotive vocal performance by NMIXX. Personally, I think that Cool Your Rainbow should have gone as another B-side in their debut because it mirrors in a way the second part of OO, just as Tank does the first part. Artistically, at least, it would have been better there, but it is still a good song. It was also the reason why many people begged JYP to abandon mix pop, because it was a more commercial sound that will make them more popular if followed. And while that is true, it was a more generic sound as well. However, even at this point, NMIXX are still not performing particularly well, at least commercially, with DICE only peaking at number 49 on the Circle chart, which isn't the best outlook for a big three group in their second release. The single album, though, performed quite well, peaking at number 1 on the weekly albums chart, number 2 on the monthly chart, and 30 on the yearly chart, which is quite good considering the fact that the mini album had come out during the fall, so the end of the year essentially. It showed that NMIXX and Mix Pop had a dedicated fandom. However, something pivotal happened during this time period. Genie, the de facto center, leaves the group. This is quite important because, if we think about it, in both cases of the NMIXX change-up parts, in OO and DICE, Genie and her voice were the ones summoning the song change. And though G's attempts at covering that part were quite laudable, it just didn't hit the same. Still, it's not like NMIXX were completely lost in their identity. If there was one thing that no one could doubt was NMIXX's vocals, which surpass those of the whole 4th gen, with only aespa being able to compete, and barely, for that matter. With Genie's departure, one of the weakest vocalists in NMIXX is gone, and this opens a lot of doors. It is also important to note that NMIXX's covers have at this point garnered significant attention on them. Most of them are vocally demanding, and NMIXX deliver every single time. The most noteworthy ones are the explosive Kill This Love, the fun and upbeat Move Your Body by Beyonce, the powerful Survivor by Destiny's Child, the cutesy and lively Very Nice, and the carefree and simple ABCDEFU. People who watched these covers realized one thing, that NMIXX can pull off those concepts and sounds. Finally, we should also note that the Y2K trend that started some years ago has now taken the world, and even more so the K-pop world, by storm. So, with Genie gone, the covers blowing up, Mix Pop not being that commercially successful, the backlash, and Y2K being the main trend at this point in time, JYP Entertainment decides to abandon the Mix Pop concept, at least in the sense that it was implemented before. And this leads us to
Love me like this, love me like that, love me like this, and I'll love you right back.
their second comeback, Love Me Like This, is a Destiny's Child Beyonce-esque R&B track, clearly fueled with the success of those respective covers, with NMIXX's vocal prowess being sprinkled all throughout the song, and a definite 2000s feel that wasn't only in the fashion and styling, as was the case with most groups, Twice, even ITZY and New Jeans, but in the sound as well. And it paid off. The song was by far NMIXX's best commercial performance domestically, peaking at number 11 on the weekly chart, 14 on the monthly chart, and giving the group their first music show win. Expert Go, if that's how it's pronounced, the EP in which Love Me Like This was included, faced even greater success, peaking at number 2 on the weekly chart and 4 on the monthly chart, selling over 550,000 copies in Korea alone. Even internationally, it charted relatively well, even marking their first entry in the Billboard 200 chart in the US. This era also came with a clearly mature Young Dumb Stupid that fits into the cute song concept, in a similar vein with a very nice cover. What stands out in this track is its sampling of nursery rhymes. It is nothing innovative in that sense. We've seen songs sampling children's songs, with Melanie Martinez and that Twinkle Twinkle Little Beach song that was trending on TikTok being the most prominent examples. However, NMIXX, instead of trying to turn those nursery rhymes into mature songs, like the aforementioned artists, they doubled down on their immaturity. Young, dumb, stupid, but who cares? They energetically sing. They celebrate those parts of their youth unapologetically, putting a new spin on the oversaturated youth concept. In that sense, they maintain their lyrical dichotomy that came with mixed pop, with Young Dumb Stupid carrying the rebellious parts of the girl crushes section of OO and Tank, and Love Me Like This carrying the adventurer love song part that we saw in the second section of OO, The Hall of Dice, and Cool. So, in that sense, part of their identity is still retained at this point. And this all would have been jolly and fine if it weren't for the other tracks in this EP. Home, one of the B-sides, is an okay track. It follows Young Dumb Stupid's road of rebellious youth, albeit worse, with the members proudly declaring, "We don't wanna go home." Truly, it's the vocals that carry this track more than anything. It's bland, but fine for a B-side. Sonically, My Home is also similar to another B-side, Just Did It, which admittedly is my favorite of the tracks with no MV. The song's chorus, especially when it's Lily singing it, is the highlight. But other than that, this song marks the first of the three B-sides that focus solely on the love song superhero adventurer part of NMIXX that I mentioned before. Similarly, My Goss, the third B-side, though a more ballady track, is still another love song talking about the excitement of love and connection with someone else. But it's boring. It's bland and it holds little to no uniqueness to NMIXX. Where the previous two songs lacked in catchy melodies, they made up in the fun production and attitude or vocals, which this song lacks. Finally, we have Password, which I also find boring. And though the lyricism is quite smart, it has no other redeeming qualities. It's bland. The issue with these four tracks is that they progressively lose their artistic identity of NMIXX. Home still has the strong vocals that only NMIXX can really carry. And along with Just Did It, they have this quirky and fun production and attitude. These factors, though, are completely lost with My Gosh and Password. But what's even more important is that all of those tracks are not unique to NMIXX, and I could picture so many other artists singing them, and artists that are much bigger than them, at least popularity wise, at the moment. First and foremost, New Jeans. Maybe not Home, but all the other tracks could definitely be sung by them. Secondly, IVE, with their B-sides in I Am, which admittedly hadn't come out yet, but it's still much more popular. And even the newly blown up 50/50 with Higher and Tell Me. I'm not saying that NMIXX copied them because, like, in IVE's case, that would have been impossible. If anything, this was quite a popular and commercial sound before these groups. And I'm not saying that just because they had some bland B-sides that they are not valid as artists anymore. The issue with this whole thing is that people actually liked these B-sides, sometimes more so than the title track. Freaking Password, which is the blandest of all those tracks and the dullest one, is also one of the most favored. And as we have already established, NMIXX's management is quick to please the fans and is unable to stick to one thing for more than one comeback, and I'm being generous with this. And that leads us to now. As of writing and recording this section, NMIXX have only released Rollercoaster, but from the teasers and highlights, it looks like both tracks are fairly similar. So, Rollercoaster is the result of people liking those four B-sides and that sound being generally commercial, which equals more opportunities for money for the company. The song would again fit in the love song side of NMIXX's discography, and it is just as bland as all those other four B-sides. I wouldn't be opposed to listening to it on a hot July or June or even spring afternoon because I live in a very hot country and what is April for me is summer for others. But that's not what and I will assume many others, think of when talking about NMIXX. We want the explosiveness, the energetic dancing melodies, the snarky, sweet, sultry variation in their attitudes, the vocals, whether that be through EDM, R&B, or the mix pop sound. And Rollercoaster, and from the sounds of it, Party O'Clock, don't have that. They sound just like any other track that could be released by most of the trending girl groups right now. Even the MV for Rollercoaster looks like that one random IVE summer film. Though for the MVs, I do still have some trust in the music video for Party O'Clock. It is important to address the fact that I'm neither against artistic variation nor against sound evolution. However, the problem with NMIXX is that they haven't yet built solid foundations on their sound so that they can develop and experiment with their artistic identity. They need to stick to one thing, and they have that thing right in front of their noses. The original mix pop didn't work out commercially, but the R&B sound of Love Me Like This fit them to a T. It can't be replicated successfully by other groups, and it has proven to be a commercial success that could only rise from this point. Not to mention that if they need a second track, they can choose the more rebellious sound of Young Damn Stupid or Tank because people actually like those tracks. To conclude, I don't doubt that the sound of this new single album could in fact be successful, or that they might return to the previous sound of Love Me Like This or Mix Pop in other comebacks in the future. But if NMIXX wants longevity in this industry, artistically and commercially, they need to choose some solid foundations and stick with them for a bit. And I really, really don't want those new foundations to be this soft, dull sound because it's just so unoriginal and therefore not firm as a musical basis, as it doesn't work as a distinguishing factor. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really have that much power. All I can do is hope that they return to one of those sounds and stick to them for a bit without sacrificing their artistic identity for the sake of money, as it seems like they're doing now. So that's the end of the video. If you have any new insights, feel free to leave them in the comments and we can have a civil and respectful discussion about it without attacking each other. So, yeah, have a lovely day, night, afternoon, evening. I don't even know what time zone it is where you might be watching. So, yeah, let's have a great life in general. And maybe I'll make another video at some point. Maybe I won't. Who knows? Bye.